for joining us on this weekend edition of the news on DBS TV. We shall be looking at what is making news in Cameroon, Africa and the world. Let's begin from Cameroon. President Paul Biya has declared Saturday, October 31, a national mourning day in honor of victims of the Kumba school massacre. The children were killed last Saturday at the Mother Francisca International Academy by unknown gunmen who stormed the school. The decree signed on Wednesday, October 28 by the President of the Republic stipulates that the national flag shall be on that day flown at half-mast all day long. President Biya, in the release, instructed the security services to take appropriate measures to bring the perpetrators to justice. Recall that parts of Cameroon have been gripped by unrest since Anglophone groups stepped up their push for independence in 2016. Fear and panic have once again gripped the southwest region of Cameroon, this time around in the city of Limbe, the Ombe area and supposedly other localities of the region. It is rumored that new school incidents have occurred, causing students to rush out of school campuses for the fear of the unknown or even of the known. Amateur images show students and pupils screaming and trying to escape from their various schools, jumping from fences and trying to find their way home. Parents can also be seen rushing helter-skelter to get their children and rush them home safely. Witnesses say gunshots were heard in Ombe, a stone's throw from Limbe, and notably Government High School Limbe, leading to the panic. The chaos spread to other schools from which the students were evacuated. However, no human loss has been recorded as of the time of the delivery of this report, and thus there appeared to be more fear than harm at the time. People all over Cameroon have been protesting the cruel assassination of innocent school children in Kumba, leaving families and Cameroonians grieving. In Bamenda, in the early hours of this Tuesday, October 27, women staged a protest march to condemn the killing. The women came out in their numbers, marching through the Bamenda Commercial Avenue, holding peace plants and chanting songs of mourning. Other peaceful protests have taken place in Kumba, where the tragic school attack occurred, adding to the ones of Yaoundé and Douala respectively on October 26, 2 days after the attack. In Douala, for instance, a group of women marched to the littoral governor's office, all dressed in black in mourning of the slaughtered young Cameroonians. Many and different as the women are, their objective is the same: the end of the Anglophone crisis and the return of peace to Cameroon. An interministerial delegation led by Paul Atanganji, Minister of Territorial Administration, in Kumba to evaluate the security stakes of the region, 72 hours after the killing of some school children. Dispatched by the Prime Minister, head of government, under the instruction of the head of state, the delegation, including Nalova Lyonga, Minister of Secondary Education, and Professor Laurent Serge Etundingwa, Minister of Basic Education, have paid a visit to Mother Francisca International Bilingual Academy, the school where the incident took place, and equally to the bereaved families. Away from assessing the security measures in the aftermath of the event, they consider strengthening the security system around the schools and sensitive public buildings, which may also be the target of terrorist attacks. The 7 children were murdered last Saturday by unidentified men who invaded the school in Fiango, Kumba. Dozens of other children who were seriously injured are currently receiving treatment in various health facilities of the town. The killing, which took place last Saturday, October 24, has drawn widespread condemnation from the civil society, political class, diplomatic missions, as well as the international community. Inhabitants of Monkam neighborhood in New Bell, Douala 2 subdivision got up Thursday, October 29 with the news of a collapsed building directly behind the New Bell prison. Information from neighbors confirmed that no human life was lost. At the time we visited the area, 2 women and a man were reported wounded and were rushed to the hospital. Elements of the firefighting brigade promptly responded to the call and, together with some young people from the area, engaged immediately to clear off the debris so as to ease circulation. Talking to the quarter head, he informed us that the 3-story building has been under construction for close to 3 months. He described the fact that people involved in such projects always deal directly with the authorities, who may not have a mastery of the situation on the ground. He suggested that it should be the quarter head to contact the authorities, since they are closer to the people and have a better mastery of the terrain. Locals could not explain what happened exactly. The incident interrupted electricity supply from the neighborhood, and workers from the electricity company could be seen working on the materials. Material damage is enormous as the building collapsed on nearby structures. Investigations are still to determine what the real cause of the accident is. This Saturday, October 31, 7.5 million Ivorians were called to the polls to elect their next president. The votes were cast in Ivory Coast's controversial presidential election, as President Alassane Ouattara's bid for a 3rd mandate has caused widespread tensions across the country. At least 14 people have been killed since the riots broke out in August following his bid for re-election and the sudden death of his preferred successor. The main opposition candidates, Pascal Affi-N'Guessan and Henry Konan Bedi, says it's illegal for Mr. Ouattara to stand for a 3rd term. According to the constitution, Ivory Coast has a 2-term presidential limit, and thus they are boycotting the vote and have called for civil disobedience. Out of 7.5 million registered voters, just over 3 million people collected their voter cards. Nearly 235,000 voter cards have been stolen or burned by individuals clearly opposed to holding the election. Following fears of election violence at polls on this voting day, residents of Ivory Coast's biggest city, Abidjan, have been stocking up provisions and sending loved ones to rural villages. The International Election Commission, however, reassured of security being guaranteed until the end of the electoral process. In Tanzania's elections, President John Magufuli has won re-election with landslide victory in a poll that the opposition has described as fraudulent. He was declared winner by the National Election Commission late Friday, adding that Magufuli received 12.5 million votes or 84%, while top opposition candidate Tundu Lissu received 1.9 million or 13%. The election turnout was roughly 50%, with 14.8 million people voting after 29 million registered. Lissu has rejected the vote while alleging widespread irregularities and called for peaceful demonstrations. The opposition asserts that thousands of observers were denied entry into the polling stations on Wednesday's vote and thus refused the election result. The National Electoral Commission has, however, dismissed the claims of fraud, asserting in late Friday's announcement that all the votes were legitimate. Large crowds of supporters of the ruling party gathered to watch the election results as they were announced and were celebrating in the streets. Till Saturday morning, there was no immediate comment by President Magufuli. In the legislatives, the ruling Chama cha Mapinduzi party won parliament seats in 253 out of 261 constituencies announced so far, achieving upset in opposition strongholds by wide margins. Also taking part in the Tanzania elections, voters on the semi-autonomous archipelago of Zanzibar were also electing their own president, and the CCM candidate Hussein Mwinyi has been declared the winner with 76% of the votes. At least 26 people have died and hundreds injured in Turkey and Greece following a powerful earthquake that hit the Aegean Sea on Friday afternoon, sending buildings crashing down and triggering what authorities have called a mini tsunami. Officials say 24 people were killed in coastal areas in the west of Turkey, while 2 teenagers, a boy and a girl, died on the Greek island of Samos after a wall collapsed on them. Turkey's Disaster and Emergency Management Presidency said 1 person died due to drowning, while 419 people were injured. Horrifying images show the mass devastation that caused at least 20 buildings to collapse, and the mini tsunami swept through coastal areas, bringing a flood of debris. The United States Geological Survey measured the quake's magnitude at 7.0, while Turkish authorities said it was 6.6. Rescuers have since been on a race against time to pull out survivors buried beneath the rubble. Turkey's health minister said 38 ambulances, 2 ambulance helicopters and 35 medical rescue teams were working in Izmir. This far, at least 70 people have been rescued from under the rubble. Authorities in both countries have reported dozens of aftershocks, calling on residents to stay off the roads and refrain from using mobile phones unnecessarily so that emergency vehicles could reach affected areas and response teams could communicate effectively. France on Friday, October 30, entered its second lockdown in a bid to stem the resurgent coronavirus pandemic in the country. Since Thursday, just before the lockdown came into effect, residents of big cities like Paris began fleeing the city for the countryside. Many areas of the French capital resembled a regular lazy weekend morning, observers say, contrary to what they would normally have been on a bustling weekday. Grocery stores and markets were observed to be the only places that were busy as people stockpiled food and other necessities. Those who were out frequently took permission forms, providing they had an exemption that allowed them to be on the streets. Take note that citizens are now only allowed to leave their homes for food shopping, medical appointments, pressing family reasons, and to commute to work when their jobs cannot be done from home. The country's 65 million people have been ordered to stay at home at all times with no visitors or risk steep fines or prosecution. The decision follows the announcement of new COVID-19 restrictive measures by President Emmanuel Macron after a surge in COVID-19 cases that has threatened to overwhelm French hospitals. Detailing the new restrictions at a press conference Thursday evening, French Prime Minister Jean Castex said people would be allowed outside for just 1 hour of exercise per day and no further than 1 kilometer from their homes. The nationwide lockdown would be initially enforced until December 1, though health experts have warned a longer clampdown may be necessary. The lockdown in France, where 36,000 people have died, is part of a series of renewed antivirus restrictions across Europe, which is back to being the pandemic's epicenter, according to the World Health Organization. This was the weekend edition of the news on DBS TV. Thanks for being with us. Keep watching and have a great weekend.